Why your reality isn't changing even though you are trying? आप मेहनत कर रहे हैं, you are putting the work, you are grinding, you are not avoiding the efforts, आप अपनी जिम्मेदारियों से दूर नहीं भाग रहे, but despite all that efforts, your reality still looks mostly the same. It could be your income, it could be your business, it could be your career, it could be your finances, same circumstances, same limitations, same patterns repeating in different forms. And हो सकता है कि आप छोटे मोटे चेंजेस देखें here and there, but the core of your life hasn't shifted. And when reality doesn't change, something subtle happen. You start telling yourself, maybe this is the way it is, maybe patience is the price, maybe reality take time to change. But this is where things quietly go wrong, because what feels like patience is often just the familiarity with the delay, and without realizing it, you begin to treat delay as normal, not because reality is slow, but because this is what you were taught to expect. You weren't taught how reality changed, you were taught how to struggle with it. And here's what most people never stop to question. If efforts alone was the driver, then different efforts should have produced different outcomes by now. But for most people, it hasn't the case, which means there is something in the background which is quietly doing the deciding. That struggle doesn't mean that your effort isn't real. It means you are operating inside a system that you don't fully understand. And once that becomes clear, forcing life stop making sense. Now, जैसा कि मैंने कहा, you are operating inside a system that you don't fully understand, which means the thing that you're trying to change, the reality itself, it is a system. Reality isn't random, because if it were random, the same situation wouldn't keep repeating itself, but they do. The same kind of limitations show up, the same pattern returns in different form, the same wall appear even though you try differently. This repetition matters, because once you see this, you stop blaming yourself, because this was never personal, it was always mechanical. Because the truth is, randomness doesn't repeat structure, only the system do. If efforts were the cause, changing effort would change the outcome. When outcome repeats despite variation in the actions, it means something deeper is holding them in place. And anything that produces consistent result in response to the condition is operating as a system. So the thing that you're trying to change, reality itself is behaving systematically. And once you see that reality behaves like a system, trying harder start to feel irrelevant. And just like every real system, including reality, it follows the same basic structure. It has the input, then it has the process which produce the output. And this is where the people apply the wrong logic. They assume that because system can be optimized, reality works the same way. But reality is not the man-made or rule-based system. Reality is a law-based system. Right? Because there are two types of system. One is the law-based and the other is rule-based system. Rule-based system are the man-made system. They can be tweaked, they can be optimized, they can be altered, they can be negotiated with. But the law-based system works differently. In the law-based system, the process is fixed, it's non-negotiable, it's immutable, and it's indifferent. It's not personal. For example, the gravity is a law, but you don't jump from 10th floor and ask gravity to reduce its pull. Also, you don't touch fire and ask it to be less hot. Why? Because they are the law-based system. The law-based system doesn't respond to intention or the effort. They only respond to the alignment. Reality works the same way. You cannot negotiate with it. You can only align with it. Now, अगर reality एक system है, then it means something specific must be feeding it. But most of us, we have been taught to focus on the wrong place. Because when you keep feeding the same and wrong thing, nothing changes, it just keep repeating. So before we talk about how to change our reality, we have to understand what actually reality responding to. Because if you misunderstand the input, the output will always feel the same no matter how much you try. So let's define them clearly. Every system, as I said, इनके तीन part होते हैं. They have the input, they have the process, and then they have the output. Now, ये जो system है जिसको हम reality बोल रहे हैं, यहाँ पे input है आपकी स्टेट ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस, जिसको हम फ्रीक्वेंसी भी कहते हैं. प्रोसेस इज लॉ एंड द आउटपुट इज योर फिजिकल रियलिटी. नाउ यहाँ पे सबसे जरूरी जो पार्ट है वो है लॉ, बिकॉज लॉ कोई ओपिनियन नहीं है, लॉ कोई प्रेफरेंस नहीं है, कोई रिवॉर्ड या पनिशमेंट सिस्टम नहीं है. लॉ इज मैकेनिकल. It doesn't decide, it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't care what you want. This mechanism which I'm talking about here as the law, it has been described across the multiple tradition. In the Hermetics, it is called as within, as without. वेदांतिक में इसको कहा गया है यथा दृष्टि तथा सृष्टि. As the perception show is the creation. बाइबल में इसको बोला गया as a man thinketh in his heart. Heart यहाँ पर is the key word. Heart. तो बाइबल में बोला गया है एज अ मैन थिंकeth इन हिज हार्ट सो इज ही. डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस, सेम मैकेनिज्म. मीनिंग योर इंटरनल स्टेट is treated as the cause and the external world becomes the effect. Law doesn't ask what you're trying to do, law always asks what you are trying to being. It's your internal mirror configuration which eventually reflect in external form. That's why जो रियलिटी है इट डजंट रिस्पॉन्ड टू द एफर्ट, बिकॉज जो एफर्ट है दैट इज एट द आउटपुट. एक्शन डजंट क्रिएट रियलिटी, इट ओनली रिवील्स व्हाट ऑलरेडी बीन क्रिएटेड हियर. दिस इज व्हाई ट्राइंग हार्डर hasn't changed much, not because effort doesn't matter, but because it's happening very late in the chain. You are trying to change the cause using something that already belongs to the effort. And this is why nothing externally feels like it's moving. So it's not about hard work, it's not about more knowledge, because the thing is, the knowledge gained from the place of lack only creates lack. The hard work only amplify the place from where you are doing it. The law doesn't work backward. It doesn't respond to the force, it responds to your state of consciousness. And once you see that, rest start making sense, because whatever state you are stabilized internally, law applies itself to it. It applies the process and creates the corresponding reality. And when I say reality respond, it don't mean it initiate, it means it reflect, because the thing is, reality is at the output and output doesn't choose, it mirrors the input it's generated from. Or let me say it differently, because this is important. Reality doesn't respond like a decision maker, it responds like a mirror every time, no exception. That's why nothing has changed in your reality, because all reality is a reflection. And what we do, it's like you standing in front of the mirror and you don't like what it's reflecting. So rather than changing what is standing in front of the mirror, आप कपड़े से उसको साफ करना शुरू कर देते हैं. It doesn't work like that. Reality won't smile until you smile. Now this connects to something deeper, because most people oversimplify this. They hear the word state and they assume that state means how you feel in the moment. It's not. It's a configuration. So in a nutshell, your state of consciousness is your level of understanding, your level of awareness. For example, अगर एक मैजिशियन है जो एक मैजिक कर रहा है, आप उसकी तरफ देखते हैं और आप अचंभित हो जाते हैं. But what you don't understand that मैजिशियन ही इज वर्किंग फ्रॉम हायर लेवल ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग. अगर आपको उस मैजिक के पीछे की ट्रिक पता चल जाए, देन ऑल द मैजिक सिंपली डिसअपीयर्स. एंड दैट्स व्हाट रियली हैपन जब हम सक्सेसफुल लोगों को देखते हैं, अचीवर्स को देखते हैं, एंड वी थिंक दैट दे आर ब्लेस्ड बाय द गॉड, दे आर एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी, दे नो समथिंग विच वी डोंट. बट इन रियलिटी दे जस्ट हैव द हायर लेवल ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग. जब आप हायर लेवल से ऑपरेट करते हैं, देन ऑल द ट्रिक्स स्टार्ट टू डिसअपीयर. And as I said, your state of consciousness, it's composed of multiple inner components. And these components, they are your beliefs, your expectations, your attention, then your conviction, your identity, your emotionally charged thoughts, your imagination. So these are the components, and they converge, they overlap, they collapse into one dominant state, which is your inner state, which brings us to the original frustration why you have been doing more but experiencing the same result. Because the question isn't what you are doing, it's what all of these inner components are collapsing into emotionally. Now here's where it gets interesting. By themselves, they are all these components, they are inert, and most people, they miss this part, because what actually gives these components power is the emotion behind it. It's the emotional charge inside every single one of them that gives its potentiality to alter your state. Because think of it like this: a belief without any emotion is just an idea. A thought without emotion is just the noise. Expectation that you have, if it doesn't have emotions behind it, it has no gravity. And identity without any emotion is just a description. Imagination with no emotions behind it, it's just the fantasy. And attention without the emotion, it doesn't hold, right? And because the state is configured by what is emotionally active, your state of consciousness is always dominated by your emotional consistency and not by your thought. Reality doesn't respond to what you feel in the moment, it responds to your emotional momentum. The law doesn't read words, it doesn't read intention. Law reads emotional charge. And whatever become real internally is what get externalized. Emotion is what actually turns your inner content into causal force. And this is why when you start to get aware about it, when you start to gain this awareness alone start to change things. Because once you see what is your state, what is your state is made up of, you stop feeding it unconsciously. Now आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि your state isn't abstract, it's being configured in very specific place inside us, and one of the place where it start is the belief. Because what really happens is that belief tells reality how you think it works. So it tells reality your perception of how reality works. And what they do is they emotionally condition you for what you feel acceptable. Take for example a common belief that good things takes time. Now on the surface this belief is fine, logical लगता है, reasonable लगता है, जो इसको बोलता है that person start to feel wise, but belief it doesn't stop at that meaning. They form emotional association. Because अगर आप ये सोचेंगे कि जो अच्छी चीजें हैं, जो चेंज हैं, it must take time, then जब आपकी लाइफ में ईज आना शुरू हो जाता है, चीजें easily होने लग जाती हैं, then what really happens? You start to feel suspicious. You associate the rapid progress with the feeling of that I have not deserved it. So अगर आपकी लाइफ बहुत easily change होने लग जाती है, then it feels undeserving. Ease feel like a cheating. And without realizing it, you associate ease with guilt. When ease feels wrong, delay feels right. So when success begin to move for you, जब आपके लिए चीज़ें चेंज होने लग जाती हैं, आपका जो इमोशनल सिस्टम होता है that start to tighten. Not because of fear of failure, because fear of having skipped something which you were supposed to struggle for, you have to suffer through. आपने उतना टाइम नहीं स्पेंड किया. And that really start to happen because we watch all these stories. लोग के बताते हैं कि कैसे 15 साल 20 साल मैंने मेहनत करी, मैंने कभी पेशेंस नहीं खोया. So we start to associate success and rapid change with the time, and because you have not spent that amount of time, you start to feel guilty, not consciously but mechanically. And when things start to change for you, when you start to see some rapid change in your life, what happens? You slow down, you hesitate, you unconsciously delay yourself. Not because कि आप success नहीं चाहते, but because your belief it actually trains you to feel wrong receiving it easily. And once that happened, that guilt becomes part of your state. And law doesn't respond to what you want or what you say, it responds to you, the state that you are emotionally settled in. Reality doesn't delay to test you, it's actually slowing down to stay consistent with the emotional contract that you have signed with yourself. And once a belief settles, it shows up in expectation. Because ज़्यादातर लोग expect करते हैं कि सक्सेस हैज टू बी अर्नड थ्रू स्ट्रगल। हम इंटरव्यू देखते हैं, हम स्टोरीज सुनते हैं और पीपल टेल यू हाउ दे वर्क 80 hours a week। उन्होंने बहुत ज्यादा मेहनत करी, दे वर्कड अंटिल देयर eyeball bleed and what start to happen? You start to feel that अगर आप ग्राइंड नहीं करेंगे, अगर आप स्ट्रगल नहीं करेंगे, then you are not worthy, and not because you want pain but because struggle proves worthiness। So जब चीजें आपके लिए आसान होने लग जाती हैं, when there is no struggle, जब अपॉर्चुनिटीज आसान से आपके सामने अपीयर होने लग जाती हैं, then there is this emotional conflict that start to rise within you। That's why ease start to feel unearned। अगर कोई आपको सपोर्ट के लिए हेल्प करता है, then that support start to feel illegitimate। Progress starts to feel premature। और underneath all this subtle conditioning, there is this emotion of unworthiness। Why? Because you haven't struggled enough। We live in a society जहाँ struggle is treated as a badge of honor। Let's be honest, like अगर I introduce you with two person, एक बोल रहा है कि I struggled a lot, I worked for 80 hours a week। मैं पैदल जाया करता था, I had no vehicle, और मैंने बहुत struggle किया, and it took me 15-20 years to really build this business। Go and watch how many views that video get on the YouTube। These stories, they are very fascinating। और इसके बजाय अगर the other person tell you know what, it was just easy, मैंने 6 महीने में I just earned this much of amount of money, I made this such a huge business, or I've constructed such a huge house, then what start to happen within you? You start to feel this person, he is not worthy, इसने earn नहीं किया है, he hasn't earned it। So unconsciously जो होने लग जाता है that we start to associate struggle with feeling worthy। और अगर चीज़ें easily हमारी लाइफ में आने लग जाएं, चेंज हमारी लाइफ में easily होने लग जाए, then we start to feel unworthy, because receiving before struggle feels like premature, because there is an aspect in you that want suffering before success feel earned, and that assumption in you, you have never questioned it, you have never asked this assumption, like since when reality requires your suffering as a proof। And as I said, reality doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are emotionally cleared to accept, that is your expectation। And because the state you are aligned in, which is earning through the struggle and not receiving, reality mirrors it। And this doesn't stop at the expectation, it leaks into what we mentally rehearse। So your imagination tells the reality what you have already lived internally। It's a pre-experience, it's experienced something before it actually materializes into your reality। But more often than not, अगर आप देखेंगे कि we imagine failure scenarios, and ऐसा करने को we call it us being practical or realistic। We justify it by saying that negative scenarios rehearse करके I am protecting myself from the disappointments। अगर मैं fail हुआ then it will not hurt। And it's a funny thing, right? Because we assume imagining failure is realism because imagining success is named as delusion because it feels risky। So what really start to happen? We replay conversation going wrong, we rehearse rejection, we mentally live in the scenarios of things falling apart। But the funny thing is that reality doesn't differentiate what is imagined and what is experienced, and every rehearsal that you do, it carries the emotions of anxiety, frustration, disappointments, concern, and whatever we keep rehearsing emotionally, it becomes easy for the reality to simply repeat, because reality doesn't need to create failure for us, it just meets us halfway where what we have already created emotionally। The funny thing is that we live in a world where preparing for the failure is called realism, and expecting and preparing for the success is called delusion। Reality doesn't repeat what you want, it repeats what you have already experienced emotionally within you। And when we rehearse something enough, notice then where your attention goes, because attention tells reality what you are keep returning to। Attention is simply the concentration of your emotional energy, and that's it। Attention quietly tells you what actually matters to keep it alive। Where attention rests, emotions follow। And the thing is, most of us, we have calibrated to focus on what is not working, what is wrong, why it's taking too long. And जब चीजें align होनी शुरू होती हैं, जब चीजें start to work for you, what happen? You focus on what is not working, and the answer is, you are like, is it working? क्या मेरी reality change हो रही है? And the answer is not yet. So this not yet get programmed, and each time your attention return there, a subtle emotion is reinforced, and that's the quiet pain of not yet. Over time, what really happens is that this emotional pairing become normalized. Thinking about, oh, it's not happening right now, oh, it's getting delayed, not yet, my reality is not changing, it's not there, not yet, that becomes normalized. So even when things begins to move, attention keeps snapping back to, is it really working? No, it's not working. And law doesn't respond to your intensity, it responds to where your attention repeatedly lands with emotions. So reality keeps reflecting not yet in your life, because not yet is the emotional context attention has stabilized. Now notice something interesting here. None of this requires you doing more, only understanding what was already going on, because the truth is, you are not stuck in struggle, the struggle is stuck in you. So when the attention keeps returning to the same emotional place, something deeper settles, which is your conviction. And what conviction does is, it tells reality what feels inevitable. Conviction is not belief, conviction is knowing. Conviction is what feels settled and inevitable. You might say you want change, but emotionally we already know how usually things goes. We have seen this pattern in the past. Tried before, failed before, hoped before. So underneath all the desire, there is a quieter knowing that this will probably take time, this will probably not work quickly, something will slow it down, right? So that knowing doesn't feel negative, but it feels realistic. And whatever feels realistic, we never question it. So what really start to happen is that we start to plan around it, we brace for it, we adjust our expectation to match it. So reality doesn't resist our conviction, it simply aligns with it. Whatever in your life feels inevitable becomes familiar, and whatever is familiar is easy for the reality to repeat. And as something start to feel inevitable, it start to color your thoughts. These are the thoughts that you visit and entertain moment to moment, and you keep returning to them. So thought themselves, that doesn't have any power, it's the emotions that gives them that weight. And that's why I said that in the Bible it was said, as a man thinketh in his heart, not in his mind, in his heart, so is he. Why? Because जो heart है, that is your emotions, it represent your emotion. अगर आप scientifically देखेंगे, the electromagnetic field created by the heart is 60 to 100 times more powerful than that created by the brain. So you keep repeating these emotionally charged thought in your mind. You start to visit the concern that you had in the past. You doubt yourself quietly, a scenario that you keep entertaining, like just in case if it goes wrong, and what happens. So because the truth is, most of the time we are not afraid of the future, we are just afraid of repeating the past. And your past experience, it start to affect how you think and the feeling that you have inside you. That's the hidden pain here. And you start to entertain the thoughts of anxiety, thoughts of frustration, thought of things not going your way, things delaying. And those emotionally charged thoughts, initially they don't feel negative, they actually feel normal, because whatever feel normals doesn't trigger any correction, and whatever we feel normal, it find us. Reality doesn't respond to the thought that you had once, it responds to the emotional charge of the thoughts that you keep repeating and entertaining in your mind. और जब ये नेगेटिव थॉट लूप्स दैट आर चार्ज विद द इमोशंस आप अपने माइंड में प्ले करते रहते हैं, then what start to happens is that you start to form your identity. So identity is something which tells reality who you are, not what you say, but who you are, you feel emotionally committed to being. And most of us, we don't realize, but ज़्यादातर हम अपनी identity we craft it around the things like, oh I am a struggler, oh मुझे हमेशा चीज़ बहुत मेहनत करने के बाद ही मिलती है, ओ मैं जितनी भी मेहनत कर लूँ बट मेरे लिए चीज़ें कभी जल्दी बदलती ही नहीं है. So we start to form all these identity. No, having an identity of a struggler feel noble. We put it as a badge of honor. We call ourselves one who struggles, one who must work hard than the others. The hardest working person in the room. And that's why ease start to appear, that it contradicts who we are. Ease start to feel unfamiliar with our identity, our self concept. And unfamiliar things, they often don't feel exciting, they feel unsafe. And because ease contradicts our identity, what start to happen is that we self sabotage, we mishandle the opportunities, we slow down our momentum. And जब चीजें गलत होती है, then we tell, oh see, I told you ना, that it takes me a lot of time, a lot of hard work to get to my desired reality. क्योंकि जब there is an aspect in you जो चाहता है कि that he gets that boost when he says, देखा मैं सही था, I was right. Because the thing is, we often be right then reach our desired reality. So that is the quiet pain inside you, this pain of being inflexible, not changing, not agreeing to this concept of that things can be easy, the reality can change smoothly. And that's not stubbornness, it's just emotional rigidity. And the truth is, your reality will protect identity first and results second. So when reality keeps repeating, it's not because you are doing something wrong, or it's not because you are not trying hard enough, but the real reason it's because your state of consciousness has stabilized into something which is opposing you stepping into your desired reality and changing your life. Nothing here actually need fixing, only noticing. Because the moment you see the emotional contracts that you have made with yourself, you can't unknow them. Because once you see that the struggle was never required, you ask yourself a simple question: why I was insisting on it? Reality isn't slow, reality isn't testing you, it's not resisting you, it's simply matching the state that you keep repeating. So the question here is not like, why isn't my reality changing? The real question that you should ask yourself, and let me write it down. What am I emotionally settled in?